President Trump, who during the campaign season said no one was tougher on Russian dictator Vladimir Putin than he. But now that he's in office, he seems to be changing his tune, telling the American public, don't worry about Vladimir Putin. He's not really that big a concern. Is the reality just a little bit different? And we're going to talk about more of the fallout from the Trump-Zelensky meltdown and why it's obvious that this was no staged event. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so here's a tweet from just a few hours ago with the president saying I assume he means the country, but perhaps his administration, should spend less time worrying about Putin and more time worrying about, I can't repeat this on YouTube, I'll get demonetized, but migrant gangs, drug lords, murderers, and people from mental institutions entering our country so that we don't end up like Europe. Now, I want to point out a couple of things. First off is that the U.S. president and the U.S. government, part of why I pay taxes, part of why you pay taxes to them, is so they can worry about a bunch of shit at the same time, right? I cannot do anything to stop Putin. Well, that's not actually true, but I'm limited in what I can do to stop Putin. That's why I do actually all the fundraising, and that's why those units keep sending me patches, because me, raise a lot of money to put Russians in the ground. And I'm happy to do it because, well, Putin's a piece of shit. Now I'm going to get demonetized for sure. But the point of paying taxes is that the government deals with a bunch of things, right? I cannot vet every person that comes into the country, but I'm glad my tax dollars have somebody sitting on the border saying, hey, who's this person that's trying to enter America? Are you wanted? Are you, some sort of criminal? Boy, that seems like a suspiciously cocaine-sized package of oranges you have there, right? I'm glad those guys are out there doing their job, controversial though it may be. So the idea that the president is like, actually, guys, our major geopolitical rivals, you guys, we shouldn't worry about this guy. Again, this is from someone who literally 90 days ago was telling us that he was unbelievably tough, unbelievably decisive, that a dictator like Putin was quaking in his boots at the thought of at real Donald Trump returning to the presidency. Okay, now here's the thing. Literally yesterday, we broke down why Vladimir Putin, based on his core state ideology, his absolutely dead to rights, ink on paper, foreign policy is the destruction of the United States, or what he calls the Atlanticist apparatus, and the creation and replacement of that by his Eurasian security architecture. And so this is someone whose intrinsic foreign policy is the destruction of the United States. It's not a feature, right? It is not a bug. It is not a side effect of Russian foreign policy. It is Russian foreign policy. And so part of the reason I pay taxes is so that we have a big military that keeps the people that want to destroy America in constant fear, right? And when they get big for their britches, I pay my taxes so that those people learn the hard way. Now, why should we sweat about old Russia? Well, I want to point out this handy chart that you too should be able to tell your friends about. As you can see, this is the total number of nuclear warheads held in each country. You may notice that Russia holds more nuclear weapons than the next two highest countries combined. If you were to take the United States and the next most heavily armed nuclear state, China, and combine their arsenals, they would not equal what Russia has. So I'm going to go ahead and say that alone is a reason we should worry about Vladimir Putin, right? But that's not the only reason. What about conventional military size? Size isn't everything in a military, trust me, believe me. But I want to point out another fun factorino. This is from, let's see if we can get a date here. This is World Atlas Graphics. So I'm not sure what this doesn't appear to be dated, but this is approximately correct. It may be a little bit bigger than this, but the numbers are ballpark right. And I might point out that you may notice that in this handy chart that the largest militaries are held in large part by American adversaries, right? Particularly Russia, as you can see, Russia, 850,000 troops. The estimates, it's probably a little bit higher now because we know there's 500,000 Russian troops in occupied Ukraine alone, and Russia has a large conscription population that serves inside of Russia itself. But even more troubling is the fact that we know that North Korea has sent their troops to support Russia in direct combat. So if you look at both combatants in Ukraine, they represent, again, the largest combined military force in the world. And so this is a reason why we should probably lose a little sleep about what Vladimir Putin is doing. It should also bother you that Vladimir Putin is supported economically by China, right? Who do you think makes all those Russian drones? Do you think Russia's just pulling them out of the tundra? No, they're coming from China and they're coming from North Korea. So the problem is that, yes, we should worry about Vladimir Putin. We should wake up every day and worry about the people who would, if Vladimir Putin could press a button and erase the United States and every citizen in it and face minimal consequences, he would do it. He would do it. The only reason he doesn't is because the United States would torch his country with our nukes, right? That's the same reason. China does not have generosity. They don't have a commitment to human rights. Human rights don't exist in Russia, okay? If it is expedient to the state, right? If it is expedient to Vladimir Putin's objectives, he would kill every person he could, just like Xi Jinping, right? The Uyghurs are an obstacle to him achieving some geopolitical objective, so he's just going to exterminate them, okay? And so many Americans on both sides of the aisle forget that we live in this world. We think we live in a world where the use of force, that's so passé. It's like your friend in the nicest gated suburb having some hot take about how the police should operate in a major urban city. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't get to sit in the safest place on God's earth and have a hot take about what the cops do. The cops don't do anything in your neighborhood, lady, right? This is the same thing when I hear somebody be like, we don't have to worry about Vladimir Putin. No, dude, you do. We live the international order, despite all the nice words that people love to say, the international order is it is closer to Somalia than it is to the suburbs. If you have the guns, you make the rules. As we've seen, Vladimir Putin has committed war crimes on a weekly basis. Has he faced any meaningful consequences as a result of it? Not really. Not really. So clearly, are the war crimes rules? No, they're not. They're just feel-good things. And when you live in that world, you have to be big enough to protect yourself. And so this is why when I see stuff like this, it's like, dude, you exist. The presidency exists to secure the country from the people that would wish to do it harm. And if the president doesn't wake up every day with that as his North Star, then get out of the presidency. Go do something else. And so this kind of thing is my number one gripe, this kind of thinking that Trump engages in, right? At least Trump, this version, Trump 2, right? Because even some of his first administration people, H.R. McMaster, his national security advisor, right? His national security advisor, remember, Trump himself said that when I was president, Vladimir Putin would never have tried this. So you'd think that the person who was his national security advisor during that era, when he was so successful at deterring Putin by his own account, you think that person would have some sort of, his takes would be worth listening to. And Trump himself, that is who that tweet is responding to. H.R. McMaster said, Putin's loving this dude. Putin's absolutely stoked. And here's the thing. Is Trump even focusing on the border? No, he's not, right? You know who did more deportations, according to the statistics? Biden. Joe fucking Biden. A dude in obvious cognitive decline managed to deport almost 25% more people. And the reason is because the reason is simple, because there's not that many people showing up at the border. That's it. That's it. And you know what? It's not because of presidential policy. I'm here to tell you. And by the way, that plaque back there is for the 7 years of service I spent in the Department of Homeland Security dealing with immigration issues. So this, yeah, I actually am an expert. The reason is simple. It is because during COVID, the United States had a state of emergency declared, and they said, we are temporarily pausing asylum. And the Biden administration tried to keep that in place as long as humanly possible. So long, it took a court order, and they exhausted all of their appeals before the court said, listen, you can't pretend there's still an emergency for COVID. You got to start resuming asylum cases. That was it. That's the reason. So he got a ton of deportations, right? It doesn't matter who was in charge of the White House because the system is like a machine, right? It's like the donut machine at Krispy Kreme, right? Because you have to have courts that issue deportation orders. You have to adjudicate asylum claims if necessary. You have to place the individuals in detention. You have to coordinate deportation flights to their home country. Their home country has to issue them travel documents and a visa and conduct a background check, right? And all of these things have to happen. It's the Krispy Kreme machine. And without more machine, without a faster, bigger, better machine, you cannot just simply, a new president, right? It doesn't matter who is running, who's working in the Krispy Kreme that day. They can't make the machine make donuts faster. It makes donuts as fast as it can, right? If you upgrade the machine, right? Hire more immigration judges, expand Border Patrol, expand ICE. But remember, Elon Musk just went and fired a bunch of federal employees, so including immigration judges. So Elon's out there breaking the machine. So yeah, I worry about that too. But the president isn't even doing that well. It's not clear what he is doing other than fighting pointlessly with his allies. And we're going to break down why there's been a recent line of cope being rolled out by people on both sides that that fight was staged. That fight was staged. It was not staged. And we know it was not staged because information was revealed in that fight that was not ever meant to be made public. And we know this because Russia has changed its tactics, because the financial markets have taken that new information and run with it. And a whole bunch of other indicators show that this was not, they dropped info quietly that was never supposed to be made public, or at least confirmed publicly. But before I talk about that, I want to mention one thing. You may notice on this channel that every time Elon Musk does something stupid, he somehow manages to piss me off more. The reason is because he's a fucking terrible business owner and he doesn't give a shit about the country. Yeah, that's the fact, right? And I know this because I am a business owner, right? So while Elon Musk makes the world's shittiest looking pickup truck, I make the world's best energy gum, right? See, unlike Elon, who said every year, right? Next year, your truck will totally be self-driving. I totally promise. Guess what? From day one, you chew Strike Gum, you're going to get 90 milligrams of caffeine right in your system. Boom. That's as much as an energy drink. This pack of gum has 5 energy drinks worth of caffeine. If you're a cop, a firefighter, or a Ukrainian drone pilot, who, by the way, have asked for even more gum, I gave a bunch out to all the units I met in Ukraine, right? That does exactly what I say it's going to do. No BS from me. And of course, it's made in the USA because unlike Elon, I don't move countries based on whoever offers me the lowest tax rate or whatever, right? I'm an actual fucking patriot. So if you want to support me, support Strike Gum, right? And really, the important thing is, unlike the Cybertruck that looks like shit and doesn't do anything you want a truck to do, this does everything you want your energy gum to do. It's got 90 milligrams caffeine, 100 milligrams alpha GPC, 0 sugar. It's not going to screw up your diet. And if you, again, are that cop, firefighter, construction worker, you can't carry around an energy drink or a cup of coffee. Pop this in your pocket. Get it done, right? This is not the energy gum of the people who act tough on social media. This is the energy gum of the people who actually get things done every day. So go to strikegum.com or go to Amazon, pick some up, right? And as always, tell your friends. That always makes a difference for us. Okay, the link's in the description. Now, here's some evidence that this fight, this showdown, this shouting match was not staged. And we talked about it when we watched it in real time. It was very obvious that there was trying to be on-ramps or off-ramps, particularly offered by the vice president, while not while managing to not piss off the president. But the people that say, oh, this was staged, if it was staged, they wouldn't have revealed key information about the Ukrainian military, right? One of the things Trump said is, you guys don't have the people. You're running out of people. You're running out of soldiers. And so you can see now that Russia has taken that information exposed by the president and pivoted its strategy, as Russia is now targeting Ukrainian military training grounds. Why would they do that? Why would they suddenly strike these training grounds with Russia's very limited? Russia can only make about 1 or 2 Iskander ballistic missiles a month. So why are they focusing them on training grounds? The answer is, of course, because that these training grounds are, of course, a key linchpin, right? And the president said that it was the first thing and the only thing he talked about that was the critical juncture for the Ukrainian military was their personnel issues. And so this, while it's been rumored for a long time, we've been talking about it for a long time, the fact that the United States president confirmed it in front of cameras was itself a sign to Putin that this is the Ukrainian weak spot. And again, if you're negotiating with someone, if you are in negotiations, why would you tell them where your weak spots are? Why would you tell them where they're weakest? That is so stupid, right? Like this is like sitting there and you own a business and you're negotiating like a buyout and you tell them, well, we've got this problem and we don't know how we're going to solve it. Why would you tell them that? Because then they're going to go, dude, his business is worthless. He's got an unsolvable problem. We don't have to offer him anything. We can just wait and we'll get a better deal. And that's literally what Russia's strategy is. Russia's strategy is great. Let's just target their training grounds and we'll just wait until we get an even better deal. They say we might be able to just take Kiev, right? If we just keep focusing on these things. So you also have the market. Right? If everything they talked about in this blowup was public information, then why would the market take this incident and reprice Ukrainian debt, reprice Ukrainian bonds? Right? It's dropped. They had a massive drop, the steepest decline and hitting a 1-month low, as no one wants to hold Ukrainian long-term debt which is weird because that's the market signaling that there is a greater chance that there won't be a Ukrainian government to pay the debt. That's the risk. That is how debt markets work. Okay. The risk of debt is that the country won't be able to repay it. And that, right, is a massive, massive indicator that this was not some kind of fight that just sort of rolled out information everyone already knew and just sort of was a performance for the cameras, right? Markets don't reward you for responding to performative BS. Unless you're Elon Musk, then you can just lie through your fucking teeth and all of his little simps will buy more Tesla stock, right? That's what you can do instead of running a business well, by the way, is just shill your share price and offload the risk onto investors. It's a winning strategy if you're a piece of shit. Now, you also, of course, have the conspiracy theories, right? Here's, the U.S. deliberately orchestrated this Oval Office clash. This is according to actually the head of Germany's Christian Democratic Union. Their sort of version of the old school Republican Party, right? They're not like, the AfD is like kind of well, I'm not going to draw these analogies. The point is, this is an establishment right-wing party. But again, Merz is like, but Merz seems to split the difference. He's like, yeah, it was orchestrated, but we actually think that this was deliberately like outing and trying to sell Ukraine up the river. Now, I want to point a really other critical piece of information about the president. Because again, like you guys that have been following this channel, I know that I've been dunking on him this whole video, but guess what? He deserves it. Just like I spent whole videos dunking on Joe Biden. No kidding. You guys that have been following this channel for a while know I absolutely fucking slammed that guy for being utterly weak and feckless in the face of Ukraine, weak and feckless in the face of a Ukraine that desperately needed help, and Joe Biden gave them the absolute saddest, most trickled in help you could possibly give. But the president himself said he was going to do things. And he is not going to do them. And I said at the election, I was like, listen, there's some of his priorities that I think are great. And one of them was bolstering U.S. businesses, right? America open for business. Pesky regulations that stifle innovations. He's like, we're going to clear them away. We're going to speed up defense contracting. That was something that I supported. I was like, yes, our ability to purchase the most advanced weapons, to trial advanced drones and strike packages, things that are going to let us win the war of the future. The Pentagon needs to be able to contract those things. But then why then is U.S. defense stock shares falling? And you can see they've been absolutely getting hammered as more and more the president announces cuts to defense and says he's not going to be, and saying he's going to leave NATO. FYI, guys, NATO buys $100 billion of weapons a year. So you can see why forecasters are saying, man, there's a pretty good likelihood that we're going to lose our best customers here in America. And worse still, here is the European aerospace and defense market, up 25% in the same period. Because, of course, the Europeans, why are we bolstering the European defense industry? I thought the president was about America, a strong America, one that can defend itself. Instead, we're creating a strong and capable Europe? Well, that doesn't sound quite right. Again, what happened to America first? Looks more like Europe first, if you ask me. But what do I know? I'm just a guy who talks on the internet. Anyway, guys, that's all I had for today. Hit that subscribe button. That makes a difference for me, obviously. But most importantly, thank you to James Sterling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himling, Brian Kelly, Dale McCombs, James Ola, Henry Roos here, all of our lieutenant tier members over on combatvetnews.com. You know, tomorrow we're dropping more uncensored combat videos, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.